Greece, for a very, very long time, was divided into different tribes. There was the Spartans, there was the Athenians. There were 5 of them. All of these tribes warred with each other. There was the Macedonians, that was one of them. And when Alexander succeeded his father, Philip of Macedon, at the age of 19, I believe, he took over the kingdom from his father. His father was assassinated. He was a genius. He began to train them in some tactics that he had devised. Now, Alexander was a great scholar. The great philosopher Aristotle was his teacher. His father took Aristotle captive and brought him there to train his son. Well, he created a monster because Alexander was so smart, he was able to threaten his father's kingdom. But Alexander took over, and using these tactics, he went after all the other tribes and made war with the other Greek tribes. Alexander would conquer each one of the tribes. He would conquer them, but after he conquered them, he wouldn't do what other conquerors did. He didn't make them his servants. He welcomed them into his kingdom and said, I want you to join me for a greater Greece. And he treated them with great respect and honor, and everyone joined them. Then his goal was not just to have a united Greece. His goal was to go after the hated Medes and Persians. And this young upstart, no one thought he could do it. This young upstart said, we're going to conquer the Medes and the Persians. So he starts united all of these tribes, and he began to drill them with his new military tactics and to form a united army. But there was only one problem. They spoke 5 different dialects, so they couldn't understand each other very well. You know what Alexander did? He just sat down and he devised a whole new dialect that was, for all of them, it was called Koine Greek, K-O-I-N-E, Koine Greek. And that means common Greek. He rewrote the whole grammar and syntax of the Greek language using the best of each of the dialects that they had, and he made this one language, Koine Greek, in order to be able to give a command and it be understood by everyone in his army. The Koine Greek had the most elaborate verb system ever devised in any language. It was a verb system with which you could communicate exact thought. You see, he wanted to give a command that couldn't be misunderstood by somebody way out on the flank. And so he devised this language, and then as he conquered, as no other conqueror ever had, no other single conqueror ever had or never will again, as he conquered, he caused all of the people he conquered not to think of themselves as slaves, but to join the great world empire of Greece. And so he made them learn Greek culture and the Greek language. And he made Greek the lingua franca of the known world. And you know what? When the Romans took over what was left of his empire after his death, the Romans couldn't replace the Greek language with Latin. It was already so embedded with the culture that he had implanted in all these different nations that they just left it as the lingua franca of the Roman Empire. So the common language of the Roman Empire was Greek. Now, everyone in their different provinces had their own language. They could speak that, but they had to speak Greek. And if they were part of the political rulers or judges or anything, they had to learn Latin also. So at the time Jesus was born, the lingua franca of the world was none other than the common language which was conceived in the brilliant mind of Alexander the Great. And so when the apostles began to write about what became the New Testament, they wrote it in the language that would be common to the whole known world, because then everybody could understand it. That's why they didn't write it in Hebrew. They didn't write it in certainly not in Latin. They wrote it in Greek. And that's why the New Testament that we have the privilege of reading is written in its original in Koine Greek that descended from Alexander. And it is a language which, if you follow the context and the grammar and the syntax and the meaning of words by comparison with the rest of it, is the most explicit language for communicating exact thought that exists. I've always been so thrilled when God showed me that this was something that gives us the ability to understand what God breathed, because the Apostle Paul says all Scripture is God-breathed, theopneustos. God breathed it into the writers so that without overpowering their personality or their personal experiences, he wrote through them the precise, exact, and infallible revelation of God, the New Testament.